TV, movies, pop culture, they all lead us to think that us matchmakers might have some beef with each other. Or maybe we're kind of competitive. If you watch Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I won't ruin any plot here, but, there's a scene where some of the other New York City matchmakers are like, hey, get off our turf. But something that has been so pleasant to me and a great surprise is that us matchmakers want to work together. We have a similar goal. We want to help single people. We want to make it so you don't need us anymore. We have very strange business models. Do not come back and pay us. So today I'm excited to welcome a fellow matchmaker, Carla Swiryn, who is here to talk all about how to choose the right matchmaker, how she got into this. We got lots of things to cover. Thanks for being here, Carla.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. This is actually my very first podcast appearance. So yeah, very excited.
I'm so excited to be your first podcast, and I know you're going to blow people away. So,
of course.
We can set the bar high for you because I feel confident. And, before we get totally into your background, I want to at least read a little bit about you because you have a very interesting way you also go about matchmaking, and I'm so excited to share it with people. So for those of you who don't know Carla, she is the founder of Datespot, which is the innovative approach to dating, which allows singles to connect the relationship-minded clients of many matchmaking companies at once. She shifted from a 10-year marketing career to matchmaking in 2013, like many of us who were like, okay, we have to do something different with our lives. And since then has brought together multiple marriages, even officiated a wedding for one of them. And, by the way, shameless plug, if you want to sign up, datespot.love.
Nothing wrong with a shameless plug.
Hey, we got to have that. So, Carla, let's rewind a little bit. Tell me what inspired you to make that shift from marketing to matchmaking. I feel like that all of us have an interesting story of kind of how we got into this world.
Yeah, gosh. I guess I have to bring it back to Spain. I was 13 and I absolutely knew that I wanted to be a copywriter at an ad agency because I was living there for a few months with a family. And I was recognizing the differences in the advertising there. And I just think it's so funny how we can be so deeply passionate about an industry or a path in life. And then what happens? Life, right? You totally change. So I did do marketing. Was a copywriter for many years. And I actually even, after 7 years at Google, left and decided to start my own little agency. I did that. And as time was going on, I started to realize that I just was losing the passion for the industry. And I thought, what am I really doing? And it's not that there's no merit to marketing or advertising, of course, but it just didn't feel as personally rewarding to me. Meanwhile, a friend was talking about someone who she knew down in LA who was starting a matchmaking company, and they needed someone to help launch the Bay Area, which really involved just bringing people into a database and planning some local events. And I thought, well, I'm from the Bay Area. I know a lot of people here. I'm pretty social and well connected, I suppose. So I think I could do this pretty easily on the side. And so I started it on the side and really got so intrigued about the industry. And eventually the company that I was working with needed a matchmaker. And I remember feeling kind of jealous about this person who I was going to, help hire. And I said, well, what about me? I raised my hand. And I'm so, so thankful for that opportunity. And for me taking the big step to move out of everything that I knew so well and transitioned into something that was completely different. I think that, if you love what you do, then great. It's a pretty rare position to be in. Yeah. But if you have the opportunity to jump ship and move to something else that you think might, make you happier, I can tell you I highly recommend it.
So you feel like you're much happier now after doing matchmaking for how long now? 10.
It was 2013. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is year 10. So still enjoying it.
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what is better than, bringing people together? There's a ton of people who are together because of me and because of the team that I'm on now and the team that I was on. And I just, I just can't think of anything better in life.
Right. It is definitely rewarding. Obviously doesn't come without its challenges.
Definitely
I think
challenging too. Yeah. But I think that's part of the joy of it, right? If it
Mhm.
was easy and if everybody was an easy search and it was just, okay, boom, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. I don't think that we would find it as interesting, right? I don't think we would
Definitely
be
not.
growing as much.
Yeah. What do you feel like are some of the biggest challenges you face with clients who come to you or when you're searching or maybe helping someone realize that someone is really good for them when they're not sure?
You know, everybody's a little different.
Hmm.
So it's a good question. It's a hard one. I think one thing that can hold people back is this deep set notion that they have a particular, like they're really hard set on an image that they have in their head, right?
Yeah.
And typically that image is physical, right? And actually I had this problem too for a long time where I was like, okay, I'm only attracted to baby faces and, certain type of, cute noses and wider set eyes and, like not long faces. And then, what do you know? My life partner, my fiance, he does have more of a Roman nose and a longer face, and I'm super attracted to him. I
Hmm.
think that it sometimes takes a while for you to pull yourself out of your type, right? And recognize that, sure, maybe you have preferences, but that is not necessarily what you have to be with. And also to go with the flow and let yourself um, evolve, right? Because your type can evolve. And
Hmm.
talk to anybody out there who's married and ask them, did you marry someone who is exactly what you expected, physically and non-physically? I,
Yeah.
I think almost every single time you'll get a no. And a lot of times you're going to get a hell no.
Right. And it's almost hard to believe that when you are dating and you are single, because I try to tell people that too of, hey, you might meet someone that really surprises you, that is outside of this type you've always dated. So it's hard sometimes, I struggle to get people to come around and believe that, but then you're like, let me set you up with someone who's just a little different, and then you can tell me if I'm totally wrong.
Yeah, yeah. And it states a case for the blind date model. And it's certainly, although we can talk about, what that, we can talk about that more specifically,
Hmm.
but it also states a case for matchmaking in general, because
Yeah.
maybe the matchmaker is thinking about someone who is a little bit outside of what your, list of criteria and preferences entails, if you have a list.
Right. And hopefully it's not too long of a list. I say this on many episodes.
Yeah, yeah. Focus.
Right. And
Figure out
so
what's important. Hmm.
tell everyone a little bit more about DateSpot as well, because it's a little different, obviously, than what I do, where people just come to me and say, hey, I want XYZ. So, I have even used DateSpot, which we could fill everyone in on how that works.
Yeah, yeah. Of course. Well, of course, I could talk about this for a long time, but the overview is DateSpot is kind of the Uber of the dating world. That's an easy way to think about it. It is a marketplace that connects relationship minded singles to the clients of matchmaking companies. So you have right then and there this kind of different level, higher level of commitment to the cause of really finding a serious life partner.
Hmm.
And it didn't really exist beforehand. When I started as a matchmaker, I was asking people, well, how, beyond just a network that we have within our company, what resources are there? Where's like a database of of matches that the matchmakers can access.
Yeah.
And there wasn't. And I kept thinking that there's something here. Someone should build this. And so when I left the previous company, I started doing that, and the ideas kind of kept layering upon each other. Okay, this is going to be great because singles can get in front of the the nation's and eventually the world's best matchmakers, vetted by this company, and they don't have to pay anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
The matchmakers can pay, whether it's a subscription, which is how it started, or now it's pay per lead, as I call it. So the single person can get connected for free to the matchmaker's client. And it's you asked how it's been going, and I'm very pleased to say it's going really well. I mean, we've got over 100 premium members right now who pay per match. So from that standpoint, yes, we do the same thing in a way, because we do match people individually. But like you alluded to as well, there's space in this industry for everyone. There's a lot of different ways to go about matchmaking, and we're not for everyone. But we do have this, I think, pretty cool pay per match model that a lot of people appreciate. That's no pressure. What we say is, we don't know how your search is going to go. So if you do want to be a paying client and you're willing to pay $600 for an amazing introduction, where there's mutual interest, right? It's not a blind date for us. Then we'll take you on, and we'll do some searching, and we'll see how it goes. But if we don't find anyone for you, or if we find someone and let's say we present 20 people your way and you didn't like any of them, no harm, no foul. You don't have to pay us anything, right? So I like that model. Obviously, premium members like that model. And then we have this totally free route where people can be, and that's about 90% of the database, where people can just be a potential match for the premium members and for the clients of matchmaking companies. And I think it's super cool because we also have over 80 matchmaking companies on board now.
That's
Of course,
amazing.
The Social being one of it. Yeah. And they're really loving it. They love the access to more candidates, and they love the filters. I'm big on collecting data. Yeah, collecting data and filters. And Abby, this is a question for you, but do you think that, like, why is it that in the industry you think matchmakers are so avoidant about tech? Why do you think that they promote? Do you know what I mean? That they are so proud of not using technology, and just going based on intuition. Like, is that real, or is it just a cover up for them not having tech or understanding how to utilize it?
Right. Oh, I mean, I totally get it, because honestly, I tell clients, I'm like, I first rely on my intuition and then the tech. It's like, okay, do you guys on paper match up? Like, double check my intuition, Are we matching up on religion, politics, all the things you're looking for? Because sometimes intuition doesn't remember that someone's allergic to cats.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
I think it's a really good to have the combo of the both. But I think there's also this old school aspect. I feel like we'll probably see the industry change as you and I spend more of our time in this, and maybe some of the matchmakers that have been doing this forever maybe decide to retire or move on to something else. I feel like there are so many cool resources now that, having a paper binder of clients, I mean, I may think I know maybe a handful of people who still do that, but that would drive me nuts. Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
And I just got to do Real quick too, just like plug about DateSpot is that I have a lot of clients locally here that are open to dating in other cities. So that has been the coolest resource, Carla, that you have provided, where I can say, oh, Joe Schmo also wants to date people in LA and Boulder. So now I can go in and see who's in LA and search by location and all that cool stuff too. So,
I'm glad
if
it's
you're
been
one of my
helpful.
people, you can put yourself in DateSpot too if you want.
Definitely. I'm glad it's been helpful. And I love the fact that DateSpot is an example of how collaborative this industry can be. You mentioned this in the beginning, but one of the reasons I love matchmaking is because this industry is so collaborative. Matchmakers often reach out to each other, and there's various groups on Facebook and whatnot where we see where are the matches within our clientele. And I think that's pretty cool. Matchmaking is like 98% female right now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it should be. I think we would love to have more men and more of a male voice in the industry. But let's be honest, women, our style tends to be very collaborative. So it sort of lends itself to that. I guess you could say chicken or the egg, but yeah.
No, it is a good point. I have hired over the time I've done my business a couple female matchmakers, a male matchmaker, and I gotta say it's like as women, I think we just do have a bit of a different touch with people.
Yeah, we don't
But
see
I
things being
think
so competitive all the time.
yeah, men can relate to women in a very different way though than you and I can, which I think is interesting. Like a lot of the women I work with really value having that male perspective too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll always want to have some male dating coaches that are good people I can refer to if they're like, okay, I want to see like coming from the guy's perspective, what they're thinking.
Definitely. You have multiple dating advisors, as I call them, or dating coaches, male, female. So you haven't, sorry, I'm trying to think of how to say it. You see value, it seems, in maintaining these relationships with a bunch of different coaches because they all have different perspectives and styles.
Oh, totally. Because, I do a little bit of coaching with everybody, but my style, doesn't always fit exactly what people are looking for. I also like to have a Rolodex of therapists because I'm not qualified to deal with a lot of things that come up that people talk to me about. And then I'll say,
Yeah.
hey, go talk to my sister. She's a therapist. It's a very good relationship we have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that people get wrong with matchmaking is they think that a matchmaker is going to be everything, like the problem of expecting a partner to be everything and be into all of the things that you're into, and right. I think that it's false to think that your matchmaker is going to be at your side 24/7 with the perfect advice all the time.
Right.
People have different specialties, right? Some people have backgrounds in psychology. Some people have backgrounds in, recruiting, and maybe they're, a kick-ass recruiter online, or some people are, maybe you're really pretty. And so you just get a lot of men when you're out and about, you get a lot of men talking to you. And so you can pull people in that way. But yes, some people focus on, certain aspects of coaching. I just caution people when kind of choosing a matchmaker. We can talk about choosing a matchmaker at some point too.
We definitely should talk about that.
Yeah. But yeah, just caution people in trying to think that your matchmaker is going to, be everything to you.
Yeah, I actually do run into a lot, which surprises me. People who've worked with matchmakers before and are then coming to me next, which I'm always like, and they've usually had not a great experience, granted. So I'm always surprised. I'm like, are you sure you want to do this again? I'd love to be the person to guide you through this.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting. I'm glad that it doesn't make them like swear off the entire industry, because obviously every single matchmaker operates in some kind of different way. And my best advice is like, hey, pick the person that you vibe with. because they're going to then attract people that probably you will also get along with. So it's like you and I can't be everyone's cup of tea, for sure.
Totally. The thing, yeah, I mean, one of the things you definitely want to make sure you have is the right vibe, the right energy with somebody. At the same time, I think when you're choosing a matchmaking company, you need to understand that the larger companies often have salespeople. And
Yes.
so you don't want to get too attached to your, quote unquote matchmaker if you aren't sure that they're going to be your matchmaker. So that's a good question to ask somebody is, are you yourself going to be the person? And also like, if they say no, if they're a salesperson, it doesn't mean that you don't go with that company, right? People generally are working for, there's usually a lot of similarities with people within the same company. But I think it's just something to be aware of. And then also be aware that there's unfortunately a lot of churn in this industry. So if you're working with especially a larger company, then you may be assigned to somebody or choose, a matchmaker that you're working with, and maybe 6 months later they leave. That was it is a common concern in the industry. So you kind of can't get too attached.
Right. Why do you think it is that there is so much turnover in our world?
Oh, well, I think it's because it is one of the most fun jobs in existence. And I think that people of all ages are attracted to the position for good reason. But I don't think they really have the expectations set properly. That it's kind of like deciding to be a doctor. And you think, well, this is great. I love, the body, and I love health, and I love people. So this is just going to be, barrel of monkeys every day. And then you don't really think that you're working with sick people every day, right?
Right.
Or that you might be dealing with death. And there's a lot of shadow in the light, if you will. There's a lot of happy moments and wonderful dates and people who are, happy clients and get matched up. But there's also the other side of things. There are people who, when they're paying you, and especially when they're paying you a lot of money, I mean, you charge around 10K, right?
Yep, around there. Kind of goes up depending on how much of a problem you are. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty standard for like high end matchmakers, 10K plus. When someone's paying that chunk of change, their expectations are high, right?
For sure.
So it's just something, to navigate. So I think people get into the job thinking that it's just going to be, all super fun. And then they realize that, it's not all fun, and that it's tough. It's really tough work. And I will tell you that when you don't do blind dates, you have a model like DateSpots where you're getting, mutual interest, it's even harder, right? Because you have to now get the buy-in from both people that they're attracted enough.
Right. And that is kind of part of why I do the blind dates.
I don't blame you.
Because, I do know that obviously we are all superficial when it comes to dating. That's part of it. So it can be tough where maybe the picture is not the best picture. Maybe this person's just not photogenic, but they're gorgeous and beautiful in person. I think that's, a lot of people. So it's tough to judge by that.
True,
but I'm sure you're giving people bios and all of that too, so they at least get to see what they're like as a person.
Yes, definitely. I have one of the more detailed profiles that I've ever seen amongst the 81 partners that we work with. So yeah, it's definitely well beyond the photos, but the photos are important, really important.
Yes, they are. Oh my God. If you are on a dating app and you don't have good photos, This is for the men and women because I do all kinds of swiping and researching to stay current, even as the married pregnant lady, got to stay up with the times.
Yeah.
So, there are lots of bad pictures out there.
Yeah, and I think people don't even know what bad looks like or what good looks like. A lot of women think that their photos are good when they look hot. And sure, if you look hot, yeah, you might get some right swipes. But what people are not generally taking into account is that people are also wanting to see your character, your personality, your energy, your vibe behind the hot photo, whether you're a man or a woman too. But it's even more important for women to convey happiness. And this has been studied. You probably have seen the studies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people will often have, photos that they think are great. And I say, no. And I push them and I push them and I push them. And they say, well, I don't take good photos, or I don't want to do a photo shoot, or, I don't, whatever number of excuses they have. Yeah. And I say, get your friend or your family member or whoever to take if you don't want to do a shoot, if you're adamant against it, to take a couple shots and make sure that you are smiling genuinely, because that genuine happiness behind your eyes is so crucial. Your potential matches don't even realize what's going on, but their decisions are being influenced by that energy. And so oftentimes, you've probably seen this, you'll get someone who, is attractive and on paper they look great. And you think, this could be a great match. And the candidate comes back and says, I don't know what it is, but I'm just not feeling it. And I feel, right? And I feel like a lot of the time when I hear that, it's because the person just doesn't look engaged. They don't look happy.
Yeah, I mean, it is really key. Like, there's almost no man or woman who comes to me and is like, oh, I don't like people who have nice smiles.
Yeah, right.
It's like, it doesn't matter if your teeth are perfect or anything like that, but it's like, how can you come across in a way that's welcoming and inviting to people? It's usually a smile. Think about if you're even just passing a neighbor on the street, you might say nothing to them, you might smile, and it's like, that could even make someone's day.
Totally.
So, having that first photo be like, hey, I'm smiling, I'm happy. And then you can have some other pictures in there too.
Totally. And I think men sometimes get this impression that they, should never be smiling. Actually, I met my husband my fiance on
congratulations,
a dating app.
By the way.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Well, yeah, we have a baby who's almost 1. So we're definitely in it.
Hey, well, congrats doubly then.
Thank you. But yeah, I actually was really close to swiping left on him because he looked kind of like a serial killer. He looked really grumpy, and
I wish we had a picture for reference right now.
Oh my gosh, I would love to show you. Well, his first one, he was A, shirtless, B, looked really grumpy. But that it was a pool photo. He loves swimming. So I was like, okay, I'll let it slide. But I was really close to saying no. And then in reality, he's like a super, one of the happiest, most optimistic, funny guys you've come, or at least that I've come across. So people can look different, but I talked to him and I was like, why were your photos so grumpy? And he's like, well, that's the advice that that's out there, that you don't have a smiling photo. I'm like, who is giving this advice? It's terrible. You don't have to have all your photos be smiley, but at least one of them. Right?
Ooh, what I'm also curious to ask you about, if you don't mind sharing, is what was it like dating as a matchmaker?
Oh my gosh. Well, interesting.
I could
So,
imagine. I feel like it's kind of like when you're a therapist a little bit when you're dating.
oh my gosh, there's some things I probably can't talk about on this podcast. I guess
Hey,
I'm
that's
not.
okay. If it's off limits, then too bad for everyone else. But if you feel
I don't.
comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I don't know more about. I don't care about like it's more like the privacy of the company I was working at. But I will
Yeah.
say that it gets very complicated because when you're, let's say you're out and about and you meet, if you're single, you meet somebody and you think, gosh, I really am vibing with this person and I really want to pursue him for myself. So then it's a matter of, do you be totally selfish, or do you go, or do you be, are you professional? And do you, what are you prioritizing, at that point? And you also have to, I think, have a conversation, if you're not working for yourself, have a conversation with your company and understand what's expected, right? So that you're, not going to get fired, or not, presenting the company in an unprofessional way.
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about DateSpot is that it helps matchmakers who are single, because it gives them an avenue to sign up as a single
That's a
person.
good point. Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about the potential conflicts within your client list or your, company. You can just rely on these other matchmaking companies to match you with their clients. So that's one of the I think the best parts about the company.
Oh yeah. And I've even had matchmakers who are single, reach out to me just because they're like, it's weird if I search through my own database, but if you run into somebody,
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
know, which I'm like, wow, if I matchmake a matchmaker, I feel like I just achieved nirvana and like poof, go to heaven on the spot. I don't know.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I have a couple awesome people on the team, and one of them is single herself.
Mhm.
And I told her I would absolutely love to match you up. I think that one of the big reasons for joining a matchmaking company would be to get help,
Yeah.
with, and I don't think that you, by any means, have to be taken in order to do a good job as a matchmaker. I think that's one of the questions that people ask matchmakers, and I think it's a really dumb question. Are you taken? Who cares? I mean, think about this. If you're looking to buy a home, you're probably going to work with a realtor.
Yeah.
So, what questions do you ask the realtor? What do you care about? You care about their experience, right? You care about the personality fit that we talked about before. Maybe what their, geographic area of expertise is, right? Which applies for matchmaking too. But do you ask them, so how many properties do you own? Only two, huh? Okay. Well, show me photos of these properties. Let me see if it's, if it's the type of home that I respect and would want. Like, you don't ask them about their home and make that a requirement for working with them.
Right.
Right?
It's so
So,
true.
yeah, like they can know about the industry and be super helpful in your search no matter what. And matchmaking is the same. And I think that I could actually state a very strong case for working with a matchmaker who is single. The reason is because they are the people, like, I have a baby, I don't have time to get out there, right? But the people who are single are the ones who are able to go to all these events and really get out there
Hmm.
and recruit, if you will, boots on the ground. Now, sure, they might not have the same level of expertise in terms of coaching, but with matchmaking, you're not hiring a coach, you're not hiring a therapist. I would argue you should hire someone else for that level of expertise.
Hmm.
Right? Like we were talking about different levels of expertise,
Yeah.
different, yeah. So it's something to think about.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think it's really interesting too. I think, whether married, single, divorced, whatever it is, every matchmaker, it kind of does add to their experience a little bit. But it's like we can all do the same job regardless of where you're at. But I do like the point of being single for sure. Of like, hey, you have more time to go out and mingle. And yeah, it is kind of funny now because I always joke, like, I'll just approach anybody out anywhere, and if they look awesome, see, hey, like, you want to go out with one of my clients? But
Yeah,
now that I
right.
do it, that I'm like super pregnant, it's hilarious. Because people are like, why are you hitting on me? Like, I am just happy.
Yeah. You
And
look
I'm like, I
amazing, by
promise
the
I'm
way.
not. This isn't weird.
No one can tell you're pregnant by looking at you. That's wild. You're very lucky.
Oh, hey, thanks. Don't worry. If you turn to the side, if you're watching the YouTube video,
Oh, there I see. I see. Do you know
it's
if it's a boy
there.
or a girl yet? Are you?
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
boy. So
Oh,
very
that's
exciting.
awesome. Any
Yeah.
potential names that you want to tell the world about right now?
Oh my God, I haven't even told more than my husband
Okay.
potential name. So probably not on the podcast.
Okay.
There are very few things that are off limits, but people, I promise, you will know the name eventually. So yeah, I think it is, super interesting in terms of finding a matchmaker. I wanted to just add too, are there any other questions that you think are super important for someone to ask when you are interviewing and choosing a matchmaker?
Oh my gosh, definitely. Budget is obviously one of the things that you want to take a look at and ask. What obviously you're going to be asking them, what do you charge? But I think I would advise people to not just go based on the cheapest option they find. Really
Yes.
take a look at the overall picture because sometimes you do get what you pay for, right? And sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is and say, okay, I didn't want to spend 10K or I didn't want to spend 20K, but this is what a lot of the, if you really want to play ball, that's what a lot of the quote unquote top companies are charging. And really, if you're looking at the most, high caliber, the most elite companies, they're charging at least 50K. So
Yeah, some
it,
even into the six
10K is cheap.
figures. Yeah,
Yeah, right,
exactly.
right.
And I think
Look,
too, another like important thing to add to that is, asking like, what is the value that you bring? Because, if you think about too, well, I might meet, someone that I end up in a relationship with at the end of this, you'd probably pay way more, is
yeah,
always the perspective.
yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting because you kind of own the Denver market. I know you're born and raised in the area,
Yeah.
and which is awesome. And by the way, I graduated from CU, and my
Go Buffs.
yeah, go Buffs. And my brother and my nephews live in Parker, so I have
Oh, awesome.
Colorado very near and dear to my heart. But yeah, location I think is a huge part of the equation when you're
Yeah.
thinking about a matchmaking company. So I think the question there is if you don't know, like with the social, it's obvious, that you have such a high, market share, if you will. But if you don't know that, and you're talking to a company that is not local, then
Hmm.
you better ask them what their network is in your area, because that's going to be
Yeah.
really key. Um, that super strong network. And then also think about, are you looking outside of your area? Are you open to outside of your area? As you mentioned with one of your clients. If you are, I would think about a nationwide company, or at least a company that has a really strong presence in some major metro areas.
Definitely.
I think another question to ask is about their process. So whether they do blind dates or not, right?
Yeah. You
About
better know that one.
know that going in. I talked to a lot of people who came from Talkify, and they were like, "Well, I didn't even know that they were going to be blind dates." So their experience is
Oh,
quite colored. Yeah, yeah. But I would say about half of, in my research, about half the industry does blind dates. So yeah, just have the right expectation going in.
no.
Um, like, with our matching date spot members, we have the standard process of the mutual matches. But if you do blind dates, it can be great because it can give people an opportunity to get to know each other without preconceived notions that they may have had. But I would just recognize that you will likely need a larger quantity of those types of dates in order to get to a successful point, right? Because it's just a sort of a numbers game there.
I've only ever had one person that was one blind date and done, just for perspective. So, and that was crazy.
It does happen. Yeah. It
happens, but it's super rare. So don't expect that.
Okay. Definitely want to ask people about their experience. I would say you got to be working with someone who's got at least 5 years of experience. If you're paying, a chunk of change, I think, ask if they have testimonials. They probably already have some testimonials on their site. If they don't, I would ask about that. And you can even ask to speak to one of the people within the testimonials group, or if they don't have that listed, I would ask to talk to some former clients to get a sense of their process and what they thought.
I love that you mentioned that, because I always suggest that to people too. I mean, I always do that. Like, I hired a business coach and I did that same thing because I'm like, I want to know what it was like working with this guy.
Yeah, I think people don't often think to ask it. So yeah, don't be afraid. You might get a no, but of course someone's more likely to sign on with you if you do, provide that connection.
Totally.
And I think, the process too is important to ask, like, for example, do they have a free route? I know with a lot of companies like The Social, there is a high level of commitment with everybody involved because you require a membership fee to even join the database, right?
Yep, exactly. You did your homework. I'm proud.
I looked around. So, so that's one model. And then another model is, and that can be really great because you do have people who are all bought in to some degree. So they're, that nobody's, totally broke, like, and they're willing to, again, put their money
right.
where their
There's at
mouth
least
is.
a little barrier to entry.
Yeah. But there is also an upside to the other model, which is just having a totally free route for people. I think the big benefit there, and DateSpot has this, the big benefit to having just a purely free route is that you just have the ability to pull people in that just don't want to pay, right? And I'm sure you come across this, right? Where that you're like, you're so awesome, like, join my database. And they say, I don't want to pay for dating. I want to pay for matchmaking. And you're like, right? Really? You won't pay $250 to potentially meet the love of your life? But some people just are adamant against it, or feel that, or they might be more traditional. Maybe they're a more traditional woman and feel that they shouldn't be paying for, paying for a date, right? Is how they phrase it.
Right. And I don't blame them, and people who are like, hey, I don't want to pay. I'm like, okay, I'll keep your info around, but I'm not going to interview you until someone comes along who might be a really good fit. Cause I put all those database people through an interview too. So that's why I'm like, I at least got to charge a little something, for that hour that we spent together. So yeah, I think these are all, oh, sorry, go ahead. You got another one?
I mean, I could go on forever, but I think another big question there's a question that I would not ask, and then there's a couple other questions that I would ask. The question that I would not ask, other than, are you single or not, which is silly, is there success rate? I think that people most of the time like to ask about success rate. And I just want people to know, I've been doing this for a long time, and the matchmakers, it's not that the matchmakers are all dishonest, so don't get the wrong idea here. But there's a lot of pressure, of course, to have a success rate that is really high. And matchmakers can track success rate in a lot of different ways. And a lot of times it's even very difficult to track the success rate at all. So if somebody does have a success rate that they share, it is often really, really high, like suspiciously high.
Like 98% or
Oh
something.
yeah, oh yeah, 98%. Or like they'll try to make it sound a little bit more, realistic, like 89%. And you're like, okay, I've been doing this for a long time. I know that you don't match up 89% of your clients, in 6 months. I just know, or even in a year. Um, so,
Right. I hate this question too, because it is kind of arbitrary.
yeah,
I'm more just like, hey, why don't we connect you with someone who had a great experience? Or I can even connect you with someone who worked with me for 6 months and didn't meet anybody. So you can also hear
yeah,
how it went, you
yes,
know?
so valuable.
So,
Right, right. I agree. Yeah, I think that one thing to keep in mind about like quote unquote success rates is that you, a lot of success is out of a matchmaker's hands. It's based on the communication that you have with the person, based on the communication they have with you. It's based on work. Like, sorry guys, but you actually have to put in work, right, to a relationship. And the matchmaker is not going to be there 24/7 holding your hand throughout your year-long experience and like telling you what to say and what to do and how to demonstrate, how to be vulnerable and how to demonstrate your love languages appropriately and how to be a great partner. So I think that that is also something to think about. A
mhm.
matchmaker should be an expert in having a large network, collecting a lot of great information about people, being intuitive, and making quality introductions. Beyond that, you have to take responsibility and recognize that the success is up to you.
Right. That is such a good point. I wish I could micromanage everyone's relationships and have 100% success rate, but I
Yeah.
mean, I would not have enough hours in the day. So yeah, it's like a lot is obviously left up to our clients. We're like, hey, we gave you the tools, we referred you to the coaches. At least hopefully have some tools in your toolbox to move forward. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the success rate thing because it is a question I get a lot, and I answer it similarly to how we've discussed it here as well. So I thank
Good.
you so much, Carla, for all this amazing insights. I feel
Of
like people
course.
should rewind and like write down all these questions too. So if you're thinking of hiring me, Carla, whoever else, ask us all these questions. Because I would hope that any matchmaker you're thinking of hiring can be open and honest about all these things too.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. There's so much more too that can be discussed, in terms of, how they assess compatibility and, what happens if you move and, do you individually meet everyone you match? I mean, there's so much that you can ask, but I think the important thing is just to do your research, ask a lot of questions, and figure out which company you think might be the best to try, and then go in optimistically.
Mhm.
Recognize that there is, like we were talking about, there is a lot of work on your end to be done, and then keep your matchmaker posted, right? Because a lot can change over the course of an iterative process, of 6 months or a year with someone. And so it
Definitely.
is a journey.
It definitely is. It's as corny as it is. It's about the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
But getting to a healthy relationship, hopefully, will be somewhat of the journey.
Hopefully, yes.
Yes. And Carla, if people want to sign up for DateSpot, join the free database, become a member, how can they do that? How can they connect with you? Give us all of the social media links and all of that.
Sure. Yeah. So, as a single person, you can sign up at datespot.love. There are two routes, as I have alluded to. We actually allow people to get a free match with a premium member if they sign up as a premium member themselves right away.
Hmm.
May sound a little bit confusing, but it's a way to allow people to try out premium without worrying about whether they should have tried the free route first. Like essentially allows you to try the free route first. So they can sign up for either one. And my team then assesses a fit with our available premium members right away. And we will get back to them if there is any current potential matches. And then in terms of the potential matches with the clients of the partner matchmakers, that is totally passive, and patience is a virtue with that route. So you could get an email from DateSpot that someone is interested right away, or it may be 2 years from now. So if somebody does want to get more proactive, of course, they can get more proactive with the premium route or a referral to a matchmaking company like The Social at any point. I love doing individualized personal consultations with people to get a sense of who they are and what they're looking for, and help them navigate this space and suggest the right solutions for them, which, usually DateSpot's involved in some capacity, but a lot of times I'm also recommending another matchmaking company, or, advising, or a photo shoot, or, whatever. It could be a dating app too. Depends on who they are and what they're looking for. Some people are looking for something more specific. Maybe their religion is important to them. And so I might recommend a religious specific matchmaking company, whatnot. So we also have a page on our website for a personal consultation if they want to do that.
Awesome. Well, we will send people that way. We'll put it in the show notes. And Carla, thank you so much for joining me. You did your first podcast ever. And
I made it. I did it. Thanks so much for having me.